either on the streets or when you was locked up, basically the non-Crip gangs bonded together. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. We were all separate entities, and we a lot of times we may not even have known we'd heard about each other, but none of us knew each other because, like with us, you got us surrounded just about, everywhere by Crips on every border, just about. Then you got Swans way over on the east side, surrounded, on every border. Then you got Brims, down toward the Manual Arts area or whatever. They're surrounded by different Crip factions. Then you got the Van Ness gang over in their area. Then you got what at one time was called Blackstone Brims over in the jungle area. They got, Crip factions around them. So we're all in different areas, doing our thing or fighting whatever battles we're fighting on our own. So for us, we had what became 8 trays on one side, what became 60s on another side. To the south, you got like Imperial Village and underground Crips, Watergate Crips. And for us back then, it wasn't a selective, oh, we only fight this 60s or we only fight them. Nah, it's like, hey, if you a Crip, you on the radar. And with Crips, it was like, oh, you a family? Oh, you on the radar. Not just for one Crip faction, but for all the Crips. That's how it was back in the day. And when you think about it, had the Crips had, a certain type of leadership, it really, they could have wiped out pretty much everybody that was non-Crip had they been, really organized and everybody on the same page. But at one time, they all rode together as one army.
Now I know you don't glorify gangbanging.
Not at all.
We're just giving some history and telling some old stories. But I gotta ask you, who was on the family's radar when the shooting and fighting first jumped off?
Oh man, it's like you have to say, like, I don't know if you ever saw maybe the movie Cooley High, and you remember the girls had the party or whatever, and the dudes came in with the little, his rag tied up on his head and all that. And every time I see that movie and I think about that movie, I think about Barefoot Pookie, because it's like, if he was on the scene, you knew it was trouble. It was going to be some kind of trouble. So definitely a dude like Barefoot Pookie. Maybe like a Michael Conception. Then we had like Babyface and Big Rick, and you got Skull and Sidewinder and Mad Devil, and some of those guys from 8 Trey that, their names were ringing. Of course, everybody's heard of Tookie, and dudes like Jamel Barnes or whatever, because actually back at that time for us, I mean, the Crips used to come to Centinela Park, which was in Inglewood, like a doggone army, like, this our neighborhood, this is our park or whatever. So that's kind of like how what we did is we had to carve out our little territory and make Inglewood to where it wasn't hospitable for Crips to be in Inglewood, coming down Manchester, going to the Forum, going to the Academy Theater or whatever, things like that. where we had different situations, you know, shootings and things that took place, ended up closing down the Academy Theater, ended up, you know, several shootings up at Centinela Park. You know, just to let dudes know, hey, we here. You know, we may not be able to hold the park down, but you better be careful when you coming up here and you on your way home, because we, you know, we could be anywhere. So that kind of helped to carve our territory out, earn our respect, and it's something that a lot of the younger guys that are up under that blood umbrella right now just really don't know how difficult, how outnumbered we were, how important it was to watch each other's backs and be unified. You know, where I look at Inglewood now with all of the different sets, you know, the QSB, NHB, the Center Park, Centinela Park family, even the Crenshaw Mafias.
NHP, not NHB.
NHP, okay, excuse me. See, so you have all of these different factions that are in Inglewood now, but they don't realize what we went through for it to become conducive for them to become Bloods.
What was ground zero for Inglewood Family?
1973. Actually, the first incident of any kind of significance, I would say, in our ongoing battle with the Crips kind of occurred in, I want to say, 73. And what happened is, of course, it's about maybe 10, 15 of us, something like that. We decide we gonna march up to Centinela Park. So we go to Centinela Park. We got one of the homeboys is strapped. We go up into Centinela Park, and you know, probably after drinking some silver satin, or you know, a Slits the Bull or whatever we was toasted on at that time. So we go up into Centinela Park and walking around and whatever. And I know I think my homeboy Magoo had got into something or bumped into somebody or something like that, and the dude asked him where he was from or something, and he was like, you know, I know I ain't no West Side. And my homeboy pulled out his strap and popped one of the Crips that was there. We started, you know, kicking dudes, grabbing a dude's cane, hitting people with the canes and all that. Unfortunately for the homeboy, it was an off-duty cop that was right there when all this happened. So he tackles the homeboy, and the homeboy ends up going to jail, but we're all there hollering, yeah, this is family, you know, family here. So that was kind of like, I think, one of the first times that they actually, on a large scale, recognize that, oh, okay, it's somebody called a family out there that, you know, we can go at now. So for us, I had mentioned earlier, you know, it wasn't about, oh, you this Crip, we don't, you know, we ain't messing with you or this. It was like, nah, if you were a Crip, you were the enemy. And that was kind of the ground zero for us. And from there, our numbers were never large. And maybe up to that point, we had what, I don't know, might have been 20 of us at most.
It was about 20 of you?
man, at most. And you know, this is something that I always say, that there were always in any neighborhood, any set or whatever, it's always a lot more people around than people that are actually down. So if it's 50 of y'all around, it might be 10 that's really putting in work or whatever. That, and I kind of distinguish, I say you have gang bangers and you have gang members. And gang members may have the gear on and, you know, the walk and the talk, and they may even, you know, get down on, you know, a scrap or something here, and it gives you, you know, wherever you're from, the appearance of maybe having more numbers than you actually have. But the distinction is the gang bangers are the dudes that are putting in the work, the dudes that are doing the time, the dudes whose houses are getting shot up, they're getting shot, you know, they're shooting at people. So everybody that's around, in my opinion, ain't down. And that's how you get all kinds of people from different neighborhoods telling different stories about what they saw and what they think happened or whatever. But it's really the dudes who were the actual bangers are the ones who, you know, they're the ones that have a lot of the facts, or, you know, the real actual story on what went down, rather than it just being, I heard this from him and he heard it from him and he heard it from so and so. And it, you know, by the time the story gets to a certain point, it's more myth than reality. Yeah, you know, I use that example just to kind of give you a sense of the growth. So from that point on, now you have more and more people coming into the fold. So both your gang members part of it are growing, and your gang banging part of it group is growing, because now you have more bangers from your neighborhood, you got more gang members from your neighborhood. So it kind of you know, gives the appearance of being a large neighborhood. But for us, we started out pretty small, and, you know, hangout spots were like 2nd Avenue, up in the avenues, maybe Nasty Ed's house, the Youngs, different people's houses that we might be at up in the avenues. 76th Street, my house, down the street with Chris, Wesley, and Stevie. And then kind of like our growth period too is that when you look at 77th Street was like just, I mean, it was deep with a lot of youngsters and a lot of families that came up off of 77th Street, so that the older dudes from IF, we hung out more on 76th Street, and the youngsters hung out more on 77th Street. So that at that point in time, you know, we're looking at guys that are 13 that we don't let them hang out with us because we're 16 and 17. But they're on the next block over, you know, kind of developing into what they see us doing. And, you know, going off of our example.
When did the 80s come in?
In the 80s, I'm not gonna lie, because I think that's something that happened probably in the 1980s or something like that. So that when everything faction off to where you got a 77th Street, a 80, a 9 Deuce, a 9-4, and you know those kind of things. It's different, I guess, from our era. We were the family, and that was that was what we were. It wasn't I'm the 76th Street family, or I'm the this family or that family. We were the family.
What about the border rats?
77th Street was deep. Now we had at that time he was my little homeboy who we call Border Rat. So now you have a faction of the family called a Border Rat. So I guess we would have to maybe, I'm assuming, attribute that to Border Rat, maybe the spread, of that part of the neighborhood.
Give me the main borders in the early 70s for Inglewood Family. East, west, north, south.
Well, we got Van Ness to the east, probably 76th Street going north, going south probably up to around Arborvita, Century, somewhere in there at the time that I was active. And then of course going toward Centinela Park around maybe Florence and Crenshaw, somewhere in there. Our foray into Centinela Park started, we would creep up through there about maybe once a year or something like that, and come through there, busting on dudes and just turn the park out, basically just to let people know that, yeah, we're in the vicinity, we're around here.